So
We're officially in session. Welcome, everybody. It's been a while, 2-3 months. It's been a little time off, 3 months now. We do have a very full agenda, so I will ask for your cooperation. This is a group that is very smart and likes to make a lot of comments. So I'd ask to keep them to a minimum. I know Rick has some on the minutes, but in order to get through this before 6 or 6:15, we'll have to be brief. So with that as a backdrop, we'll go through and do introductions. My name's John Bly with the Engineering Contractors Association and chair of this wonderful committee.
Rick Lutman, I'm an appointee of the League of Women Voters.
Jeff Blakeslee representing SOS Roads.
Tom Banning, District 3.
Dominic Coulamard, I'm not Jerry Glazer, but I'm here with the North Bay chapter of the Electric Auto Association.
Cool.
Mark Hale, BIA.
Dennis Harder, Sonoma County Alliance.
Brian Lang, representing District Number 4.
And Tom Conlon, Sonoma County Conservation Coalition.
And Mark Sutherland, representing District 2.
Jake McKenzie, representing Sonoma County Land Use and Transportation Coalition.
Jake has already apologized. He's got a hard leave at 5 o'clock. So thank you for that notice. Would you like to make an announcement for the folks, remote folks?
Yeah, and so those that are seeing on the screen, we have Steve Burlow here with the Sierra Club.
We're not screenshotted here.
Oh, sorry.
Your screen slept.
I'm so
We're screen deprived.
I couldn't screen on the other side. My apologies, y'all.
No worries. It's
Oh, there's
You
people
got a
there.
screen on both sides?
This screen on both, but it's
This
one
is
remote,
high
so,
tech.
my college education, that's nice. I am. So then we have Joanne Parker here with Smart,
Hi,
and
Joanne.
then member of the public, Dan Bell.
Good. And Steve's up there too.
And so, yeah, so.
And let's go through the back group over there and self-introduce, if you would.
Alright, I'm Shona Gauze with SCTA, RCPA.
Chris Barney, SCTA, RCPA.
Tanya Nara, SCTA, RCPA.
Okay.
That's Fred, SCTA, RCPA.
Brenton Hare, SCTA, RCPA.
Adam Garcia, SCTA, RCPA.
Dave River, SCTA, RCPA.
Awesome.
Margot Kanye, same organization.
Ross Bowden, SCTA, RCPA.
Okay,
All right. And then I have some administrative announcements to make because I see Steve Burlebow as well as Carol Taylor on the screen. And so to make sure that we are doing government business correctly, I need to read into the public AB 2449 exemptions for just cause. So we'll start with Steve Burlebow. We'll be participating in this meeting remotely pursuant to Steve Burlebow will be participating at the meeting remotely today pursuant to notice previously posted under traditional Brown Act procedures. Steve, could you please tell us the circumstances for the just cause participation today?
I'm sorry, you're a little bit faint. What are you looking for?
why aren't you here?
Yeah.
Oh, we've been exposed to COVID and I didn't want to bring it in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Steve, and my apologies for that. And then second.
Mine too.
And second, we have Carol Taylor. Carol had notified me that she'll be participating in today's meeting pursuant previously posted under traditional Brown Act procedures. So Carol, could you please tell us the circumstances for the just cause?
I have low-grade multiple sclerosis and heat really affects me. So today is too hot for me to be outside.
I'll accept that. I mean, we'll accept it. So we just need a quick approval from the board as in just an aye to allow the members to participate pursuant to Brown Act.
Moved as spoken.
Yeah.
Seconded. Discussion. Aye, if you're in favor. Aye. Any dissension? Motion carried.
And so with that, Steve and Carol, you must keep your cameras on through the whole meeting. And Chair Bly, all votes will be reported by roll call.
Okay, thank you. Hi, Carol. So you for an hour and a half earlier today, too. All right, so thank you for introductions. Public comment on items not on the regular agenda. Anybody have anything to add? Then let's get right into the minutes. We can get into discussion in just a second. March 25th is the last minutes. So motion to approve, second, and then discussion.
I'll make the motion to approve.
Thank you.
Second,
Seconded, and discussion. I know Rick had some comments.
Yeah, thank you. There were a number of misprints, but I won't take us through trivialities. However, there's a few that I think we need to comment on. Page 12. Left-hand column, fourth paragraph. It says, in the third line, but we're assuaged by the contractions. I assume that probably was intended to be contractors. Contractions involves labor, but that's a different kind.
Contractor, duly noted.
Is that supposed to be contractors?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And then in the right column near the bottom, let's see, third one up, there has not been a committee from council yet on this project. I'm guessing that was supposed to be commitment. That would make more sense.
Commitment.
That sound right?
Yep.
And then at the top of page 13, MX Conlon. This must be something I haven't heard about yet. Are we talking about gender-free salutations there? MR, MS, now MX?
Yes, I accept that, what do you call that,
Honorific?
honorarium or whatever
Honorific.
the designation, that's adequate and acceptable to me as an individual. Yeah.
Okay, but that's not the problem. It's the second line. It says with a bollard or evacuation preparedness. I don't know what that means. Or what was intended.
If I may, the concept, and this was adequate by my standards when I reviewed the minutes, but if you go to the tape, you'll see the full statement I made, but the concept was that we could approach evacuation preparedness, which is a goal that was set. I think Mr. Abbasi had referenced this in that discussion. And I had suggested that we might reframe that project by using a bollard that still gave us the opportunity of evacuation preparedness so that that new route could function to evacuate people, but that it wouldn't be used all the time. So you could put a bollard in place and remove it. So that was the intent of that message. And I think it's captured adequately by Drew's notes, but I defer if there's that language is not clear to you or others.
Do you have any way of rephrasing it?
With a bollard instead of or, for evacuation preparedness. would be helpful.
Okay. The only other thing I wanted to comment on is that there's an inconsistency in these minutes between referring to us or participants generally by name, and on the other hand, using an honorific. It seems to me it would be better if we were consistent about that. I'm not particularly concerned about which way it goes. I just think it would be better to be consistent. And if and because these are official minutes of a governmental body, it might be better to be more formal. But in any case, I think we should be consistent about it.
Are we entertaining a motion on that, Rick? We can't, we're in discussion on the minutes, right?
Right, we have a motion or a second already.
Second.
So I think we get back to that as a separate motion after we go through the minutes, right?
Let's do. Or we can withdraw.
or the maker of the motion and the seconder could accept a friendly amendment on changes suggested.
What he said.
So as I understand that
Is
friendly
a
amendment
friendly second? Who was our second?
to formalize the honorifics as opposed to the first names, is that my understanding? Or you working on the minute sheet? Both.
Working on the minute changes. I don't do the honorifics, so I don't know what to say about that. So I'll do the best I can not to offend anybody.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
just as an aside, I think, I'm not sure, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that the first and last name of the person is used in the initial introduction of the name, and then subsequently they are referred to as Mr. or Ms. And that's.
Thank you.
So it is consistent throughout the minutes. It's just that initially when introducing a new person, they are introduced by first and last name.
oh,
So
okay.
when you're reading the notes midway through, you know, Mr. Hale spoke or Mark Hale spoke, you're like, who is this individual? We haven't heard from them in the previous items type thing. So it's more, I keep it contained within each item, the first and last name of the person who spoke, and if there was a second or third comment soon after, then I'll go into the Mr. and so on. Now, if the committee wishes I don't do that, that's fine. I'm more than happy just to put first and last names. If we don't want to be doing that, I'm following what you want me to do.
Did we have a motion in the
I
second?
had a motion for the second.
Do you want to change it to just?
No, that's
Mr.?
fine, except for minutes,
Okay,
with the changes of.
what was the motion again?
The motion was to accept the minutes, subject to the change of committee in the one case versus commitment and contractor with the other.
And
But not changing how we refer to it.
No,
or for four in reference on page 13. Thank you.
yeah, the three.
And that was seconded.
Yes.
And by the way, I'm okay with what was just proposed, that the first time a person speaks, we see the full name, and after that, it's honorific and last name.
Okay,
I'm okay with that.
okay. Sounds like we're ready to call for the question. Any other discussion on the minutes?
All right.
All those in favor? With the-
Aye.
Mr. Chair, I have to do it by roll call, since we have a round of participation. So I have to call out by organization.
Okay.
So we're gonna start with the Building Industry Association,
Aye.
Engineering Contractors Association,
Aye.
League of Women Voters of Sonoma County,
Aye.
North Bay Chapter of the Electric Auto Association,
Abstain.
North Bay Organizing Project.
Here,
We'll say here as high, aye. Does that work, Carol?
aye, thank you very much, thank you.
Sierra Club,
Steve's online.
Steve, you're muted. I'm sorry, I was looking down.
Aye.
Sonoma County Alliance,
Aye.
Sonoma County Conservation Coalition,
Aye.
Sonoma County Transportation and Land Use Coalition,
Aye.
Sonoma County First District, absent, Second District,
Aye.
Third District,
Aye.
and hearing no nays, that motion carries.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Rick. And we are on to the measure items. So Joanne, Eddie, who's joining you, Joanne, for the smart presentation?
Hi, it's just me today. Eddie sends his regrets. He was planning to attend and was called away at the last minute to go to a regional meeting he's been asked to participate in. I hope you can hear me okay?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, wonderful. I'm Joanne Parker, Grants and Legislative Affairs Manager for the Smart District. I see that you've got that presentation up. Drew, are you controlling or am I?
Yes, I'm controlling unless you want to.
Okay, can you give me control of this?
No, unfortunately, I cannot.
Okay.
Let me-
It's all right. We'll just kick it off. And you know, I'll do like some little bell signal for you. So again, my name is Joanne Parker, Grants and Legislative Affairs Manager for SMART. And I'm here today to update you on just a little sliver of the many things we have going on right at the moment. Both of them are related to two funding actions that SCTA has taken. And then we'll just give you a quick brush on recent activities. And I know you're really busy, so I'll open up to questions and hopefully we won't take up too much of your agenda time. Next slide, please. You have two allocations that are in use right now, or they've already been fully expended. The Roanoke Park Regional Traffic Mitigation Fee that was used on pathway engineering between Pengrove and Petaluma and Roanoke Park and Santa Rosa. It was actually expended fully in fiscal year 23, but I wanted to show it here because it's part of the construction work we have going on right now. Measure M Rail, it was a $2 million amount that was split between design and construction, and it's being used to advance the Petaluma North infill station, also fully expended in this, in fiscal year 24. Next slide, please. Both of those fund sources are being used on two project elements that are part of a three-part contract that was awarded in October 23. The two pieces that we're talking about here today are the Petaluma North infill station and pathway, again from Pengrove to Petaluma and Rohnert Park to Santa Rosa. Both of those were awarded in October 23 to a joint venture between Stacy Whitbeck and Gelati Brothers. You can see all the different fund sources that are in the actual construction of the program. On the Petaluma North Station, there's also Transit and Intercity Rail Capital Program funds, City of Petaluma funds, and two affordable housing sustainable community grant elements that are in partnership with Petaluma and Danco Housing, which is building affordable infill housing around the Petaluma North Station. For the pathway segments that I referenced, we have under construction active transportation program funds that were programmed by the Metropolitan Transportation Commission several years ago, as well as Measure Q, matching almost dollar for dollar on the construction contract element alone. Next slide, please. The top picture there after our October 23 contract award, we had a fantastic groundbreaking in the beginning of November. I believe it was November 9th, quite an attendance. And then we broke ground the next day with actual work, the contract mobilized. And on the pathway, Petaluma to Pengrove and Rohnert Park to Santa Rosa elements, we had the groundbreaking at Andy Lopez Unity Park last Friday. Again, it was a really fabulous event, very community centric, and we broke ground on that pathway construction the next day also. I think actually they waited till Monday, but at one point they were threatening to get out there on Saturday. We anticipate for both of those projects, weather dependent and some supply chain issues dependent on the systems work, we anticipate both of them will be open by the end of 2024. So it's very busy out there in the field right now. Next slide, please. I've just thrown a bunch of pictures in here because I know you can't all get out along our entire line to see what's going on, but these are all Petaluma North Infill Station construction photos. These were when the actual work really began post-rain at the Petaluma North Station. Excavation, soil subgrade, preparation for foundation. Next slide. Delivery of underground cable. We have a number of uses for the cable, but one of them is a sonic broadband capacity increase that is being made available to local jurisdictions to access at no cost in that jurisdiction. So hopefully the infrastructure that's available to the public on top of what we already use for our railroad is provides a bigger benefit than just railroad service. Next slide. More excavation, underground conduit excavation at Petaluma North, night work. Next slide. This is concrete platform foundation work as a train in service is going by. Next slide. Then they moved over they replaced the existing track at the future station location site. For those who don't know, our single track, which was what existed there. When you have a station there, you have something called a gauntlet track. You can see how these track lines are kind of overlaid where the clips are. And the gauntlet track is like a half track that pops out so that when freight serves the corridor, it moves away from the platform so that that the freight trains are nowhere near platform edge. Next slide. I should just say on that last one, we are the short line freight operator for the corridor. We do all the investments in the corridor with an eye towards continuing short line service and expanding it so that we can help our businesses in the North Bay grow their business green. This is the third element of that contract I mentioned. I said there were 3 pieces. I thought I'd throw in some of this because this is the one that impacted the public. Our riders were gracious enough to allow us 2 so far. I think there's another one coming in with systems testing, but we had to do a truncated version of our system on the weekends so that we were only running service from downtown Petaluma south while we rebuilt this track crossing at McDowell on the weekend of April 12th through 15th. And these are slides of that. That work is additive to the pathway and Petaluma infill station contract elements that I showed you on slide 2. Next slide, please. They worked really productively. We actually, in some of these overnight work episodes, we actually had for the freight gauntlet track one, we had scheduled a photo shoot with the Press Democrat, but the contractors got the work done early, so you all didn't get to see a lovely photo shoot of the action from our favorite Press Democrat photographer, because the contractors are working extremely efficiently out there. They're just getting it done quickly. Next slide. And after they laid this you can see the concrete crossing. The McDowell crossing was an older sort of asphalted rubberized version, a little bit bumpier. This is a concrete slab version of a crossing that we installed, and that's the first train, revenue service train through on Monday morning at 4 a.m. And those are the crews wrapping up and giving them the positive sign. Next slide. Petaluma North preparing for the concrete platform pouring. Next slide. Pouring the concrete. Next slide. That's it for the construction photos I want to show you. We don't have any good ones of the pathway that we just did the groundbreaking on last week, but that work will be ongoing. And I will say that our general manager report at our board every month has a lot of fabulous photos and updates. So if you tune into our board meetings or watch them after the fact, or just look at the PowerPoint, it's a lot of good information. In general, ridership is really high, and we just wanted to share some recent photos with you of activity in our system. Next slide. Our ridership we continue to break records. Our ridership's 30% higher from May 2024 over May 23. And we hit our all-time ridership monthly records, as well as several all-time weekday highs and all-time weekday average highs over the last couple months. Next slide. This slide is always fantastic because it explains our system in a nutshell. Before COVID, you can see every dip is a fire or a flood. And then we have COVID, and then we climb back out. And now we've left behind the pre-COVID highest recovery since COVID. We're like on to uncharted territories now, where we're just highest we've ever been, and the highest recovery rate in the Bay Area, and probably one of the highest, I think, at this point in the country. May ridership was 36% over our pre-COVID average. Next slide. These slides, these are the ones Eddie was going to give to you in person. He really, really loves talking about how well we're doing with ridership. So here's the third slide for you. We don't know yet. June 30th is coming up. That'll be the end of the fiscal year, but we're on track to project at 850,000 riders, which is 33% higher than last year and 19% higher than our previous higher fiscal year. Next slide. Couple of items. There's so many things to talk about that we're doing out in the system and in the world, but one of the things, if you don't know, is we're free for youth and seniors. It's a 1-year pilot program. I encourage everybody to get out and try the system out. That's really what it's intended to do. Prior to this, during the school year, about 15% of our riders are kids going to school. So the system is being well used by families and of all natures, and kids in particular. Next slide. One of the other things to highlight was we also had a groundbreaking last Thursday. Sorry, the pathway groundbreaking was the Friday before that. Then we had this groundbreaking last Thursday down at the Larkspur Ferry, just like we do at the airport station and in the airport area, where we offer this microtransit on demand shuttle. which will take you to the airport. And then on the weekends, it can travel further afield and will take you to a host of wineries and breweries or any destinations in Windsor. Similarly, we've launched a shuttle in Larkspur that in partnership with Golden Gate Transit and the Transportation Authority of Marin. And that shuttle is for now at 4 days a week. And it will take you to the Larkspur Ferry, Larkspur Landing on the weekdays. And then on the weekends, again, because there's less frequent smart service, so it has to meet all the trains. So it can go further afield between trains, and it will take you to Corte Madera, both the town square and the village. Next slide. And then I wanted to just throw out there, Eddie has requested everybody, please participate in our strategic plan. We update it every 5 years. We had a host of, it helps us get our goals, objectives, and actions in line with our vision and mission. It's really great for people to engage on it. Some fabulous ideas have come through already this year. And we anticipate adopting it around by the end of the year. Next slide. We had workshops January through March online. They're topical on these 4 areas of concern: ridership, extensions, pathways, and freight. It made for some interesting discussions and also interesting overview presentation. They're all on our website, on our strategic plan page. If you want to catch up and watch them, they're quite they're nice capsules of these topics. We're doing outreach through the fall, and we'll have a draft plan and public workshop. And in winter, we anticipate finalizing it. So please stay connected, give us your opinions and recommendations and ideas. And next slide. Those are the 4 topics. You can also provide input online. You don't have to necessarily participate in a Zoom session or show up to a board meeting or anything like that. So that's it. Thank you all for your support. We recognize that SCTA has been really important and critical as a partner now, but also in the past, getting us going in certain areas, and definitely the ability to take Measure M and initiate really important work has helped mobilize the ultimate construction, particularly of these 2 elements that you saw before you today. So thank you.
Joanne, what a great report. Thank you very much for that. Appreciate it. Rick has a question.
Except for the last slide, I didn't hear anything about freight. I wonder if you could say a few words about the prospects for getting some more revenue from freight. And also, is the issue of the LPG storage in Sonoma being reconsidered?
I can't speak to the details of the LPG storage. I know that my general manager has been out there and heard community comment in robust workshops, and I don't believe there's any news to report. We continue to try to attract business and continue to invest in the system. On my grant side, I'm very active in seeking freight specific revenues that can help invest both capital and operating side of the shop. I liken the freight side to where the passenger side was several years back, right? We've only owned it for 2 years, operated it for 2 years. It was, it came with a couple customers, but you know, just like with the passenger side, when you drop a passenger train system into an area that hasn't had passenger service for 55, 60 years, it does take a while to create the culture around it. And I would say the same is true for businesses who have grown oriented around trucking and autos, right? And so now this service is being offered again. It hasn't been around for generation and a half. And so it's there. So we're working to get it, to keep it moving efficiently, expand it where we can, and just perform so that we can attract businesses into the space. And it's going to take some time to create the culture, I think.
Thank you. Jake McKenzie.
Yeah, first of all, I'm interested, do you have any data on fare box recovery since you put the youth and senior free travel into operation?
I do not. It's only been about a month.
Okay, I think that'll be important information. to have. Second thing, talking about funding for the smart pathway, and by the way, congratulations on getting rid of MUP. A most unfortunate acronym if ever there was.
Yeah, thank you.
But I was at the groundbreaking, and I would just like members of this committee to know that when Runner Park's name is mentioned in the funding equation there, that's because we imposed a transportation impact fee on housing development on the specific plan areas on the east side of Runner Park. That money has accumulated. It is, some of it has been distributed by SCTA. When we first put that into effect, we asked other jurisdictions, Santa Rosa, Cotati, Petaluma, if they would be interested in adopting a similar fee so they could contribute to the impact of development on transportation. None of these jurisdictions have done that. And now, as many of you are well aware, these impact fees are being criticized as being inimical to construction of affordable housing. But in terms of the smart pathway, the monies from Runner Park are helping to construct that pathway. And when this construction is finished, Runner Park, I believe, will be the first jurisdiction to have a pathway completely through the city all the way from north of Golf Course Drive south to Railroad Avenue at Sonoma Mountain Village. Anyway, I just want to make this point that those of you who talk to your jurisdictions, guilt trip them. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
May I add one thing? I neglected to mention Windsor is also under construction. It didn't have Measure M or traffic impact fees in it, so it didn't make the presentation, trying to be quick today. But it is under construction. It is anticipated to be open in the spring of 25. It includes 3.1 miles of rail and pathway. And the town of Windsor did contribute a couple $1 million towards the creation of a grade separation for pedestrians near the Windsor High School campus.
Well, I should mention, Mr. Chair, that Senator McGuire was present at the groundbreaking for the smart pathway and the infamous trail to the north. And that was fully featured in the signage there. So the smart pathway, as he said, is going to be part of the 300-mile trail from San Francisco to Eureka. He made a point of that, just so you all know. Thank you.
Rick, real quick, and then Dennis.
Yeah, I'm thinking about the rail corridor between Suisun and Novato, which you now use for freight. Apparently, there is some action at the state level in Caltrans and at the national level to eventually bring some passenger service on that route, which would make me very happy as a resident of North Bay. I'd love to be able to connect to the National Railroad network in Suisun. Can you say anything? I know this is a long way in the future, but can you say anything at all about what's happening from SMART's point of view?
Oh, absolutely. First, I'll say Caltrans and the state of California have been our absolute strongest partners in a whole host of ways, and this particular corridor is one of them. There is a program that is brand new. It was created with the bipartisan infrastructure law at the federal level, and it's a Federal Railroad Administration program. It's called Corridor ID. For those who are insiders, the Federal Transit Administration has a similar program. It's capital investment grants. It's new to FRA. They've set the program up. It's taken them a couple of years to mobilize, and Caltrans submitted applications for a number of corridors. They took the lead in submitting applications to the FRA to be included in this Corridor ID program, and And so we are, you know, the beneficiaries of Caltrans's actions. We were adopted, the Caltrans application was approved with the Novato to Suisun portion of our corridor being included with Capital Corridor. So it's Sacramento to Novato and Sacramento to San Jose is the idea. It's a process. There are steps. I can send a link for anybody who wants to, you know, deep dive into the FRA's process, but Caltrans is the lead on it. And it's a really great thing to be recognized nationally for such a long-term investment priority.
Thank you, Joanne. Dennis Harder?
Joanne, good seeing you again. 2 questions, one about Measure M. I'm looking at the May balance sheet, and it has a balance of cash of 3,000,000, almost 200,000. You have some committed. So what about the balance? It's coming due, as you know, Measure M is wrapping up in March of 2025. Is the balance of that going to be spent on the pathway project, or is it already committed?
The Measure M rail is we are always seeking grant funds, as you know, and we regularly use the concept of that money without knowing the actual final balance total until, you know, we're headed up to a time period where we'll know it exactly. But we use it as local match for the extensions north. So we actually have multiple, we have about 105 million worth of funds secured for Healdsburg. And we have 3 major applications that will be submitted between now and December of 24 for Healdsburg. And Measure M is a small portion of the overall funding plan for that. We also have some applications out on Cloverdale to Healdsburg, and Measure M is a match on that.
Sounds good. And can you speak anything about the renewal of your funding? The bond measure.
Like
Sales
like
tax?
it needs to happen.
Yeah.
Like that?
Perfect. Very good. You're gonna keep me on time, right? How are we doing?
I think we're pretty close.
Got time for one more? Nope. All right. Thank you, Joanne.
Think it's Carol or Steve.
Oh, sorry. We have?
Just want to make sure that if anyone on the screen wanted to.
I think she was clapping, not waving her
Okay.
hands. Okay. Thank you very much. So Shauna, you are up.
Thank you. You know where to reach us if you have any additional questions. I'm going to drop off now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Shauna, this is a Go Sonoma Draft Strategic Implementation Plan. That's a mouthful.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, committee members. I'm gonna present the final Go Sonoma Strategic Implementation Plan to you. Hopefully you all had a chance to look at it. A link was sent out, so I know some of you have because I've received comments and I am responding to those directly. Okay, yeah, I'm just, you know, making small talk till we get the presentation. Okay, great. Thank you. So this presentation is for the final Go Sonoma Strategic Implementation Plan. And we brought to you, the board and the Technical Advisory Committee, a draft version of this document in the fall of 2023. Next slide, please, Drew. To remind you all of the background, Go Sonoma Act was passed by the voters in November of 2020 as Measure DD. It was an extension of the quarter-cent sales tax known as Measure M. Go Sonoma was approved by 71% of the voters, well above our 2/3 requirement. And Go Sonoma will pick up just as Measure M sunsets in March, April of 2025. Next slide, please, Drew. So what's different about Go Sonoma? We did cover this a little bit last fall, but just to make sure that you guys are remembering. In the apportionment programs where Measure M had 20% for maintenance and rehabilitation, Go Sonoma has 38%. Where Measure M had 10% for transit operations, Go Sonoma has 23%. The competitive programs make up the remainder of Go Sonoma with 27% for move traffic and improve safety, 12% for building bikeways and pathways, In Measure M, only 4% of the measure was singled out for bike and ped projects. In Measure M, local street projects required a 1-to-1 match, and the bicycle and pedestrian projects didn't require a match at all. In Go Sonoma, all competitive projects require a 15% minimum match of some other source of funding, whether it be state, fed, or local. Next slide, please, Drew. So as we summarized last fall, Go Sonoma has a couple of programs that are new or different from Measure M. The first is the capacity building program that we will use 5% of the combined move traffic and improve safety and build bikeways and pathways to provide support to project sponsors to aid in things like preparing grant applications and technical studies and public engagement. That program is meant to evolve to fit the needs of the funding program applications as the grants become available. In addition, the building bikeways and pathways program, there is a funding set aside for Vision Zero and Safe Routes to School and other efforts totaling about 1% of the measure. And in the apportionment program for transit, there are also new programs meant to enhance transit operators' assistance programs such as first and last mile, commuter and transportation demand management programs, and that's 3% of the measure. And then the measure also identifies up to 2% of Go Sonoma transit funds that may be used to supplement or instigate free fare programs. Those funds will be available to the transit operators on a reimbursement basis and distributed based on the apportionment formula. So there's the transit program gets 2% identified for this of the total measure. Of that 2%, the funds will be distributed to the transit operators based on their formula. So Sonoma County Transit gets, I think, 49% of the transit operations, so they will get 49% of that 2%. It is on a reimbursement basis, however, so they have to submit expenditures to us and then we'll reimburse them for those funds up to that amount.
Could you say a little more about the commuter programs?
The commuter programs, they're as yet undefined, but we are working with the transit operators, and Dana Ture is in charge of that, and I'm afraid she's not here today, but they will be further defined as the measure moves along. They're just identified in the measure as we can use that funding for those types of programs as yet to be determined. Next slide, please, Drew. So the layout of the plan generally follows the layout of Measure M strategic implementation plan. So the first chapter is the executive summary. The second chapter is the background. Third chapter is the policy, or is the strategic plan and approach to how we will tackle the measure. That includes all of our projections and any, as the measure moves along, any actuals will be used to then further refine our projections. Chapter 4 is our policies and procedures. That's the how, when, and why of how we implement the programs. And chapter 5 is the financial plan and cash flow. Chapter 6 contains information sheets for each of the projects that have been identified so far. And then the appendices are resources for and references for the users. Now, chapter 6 contains the information sheets, and those are static in this document. But we have implemented quarterly reporting, so we will be getting updates from the project sponsors on a quarterly basis. We collect all of that reporting and then update the information sheets that are posted individually on our website so that you can always have a relatively fresh look at what all of the scope, schedule, and costs of the projects are. Next slide, please, Drew. So the only substantial difference from the draft strategic implementation plan that this body reviewed late last year is that the SCTA board approved loans between Measure M and Go Sonoma to allow Go Sonoma projects and programs to begin prior to the start of revenue collection in April of 2025. This policy was approved by the board in April in order to be included in the preliminary SCTA budget in May. The loans allow for a well-capitalized Measure M fund otherwise known as Local Street Projects, or LSP, to be used for loaning to Go Sonoma. These funds would normally be invested in a short-term rate as part of the authority's pooled investment program in the county treasury pool. The board is able to set forth the terms of the loan, which include the estimated interest rate and the terms under which the loan will be repaid. Next slide, please, Drew. The loan includes two principal amounts, 2.68 million in fiscal year 24-25 and 3.22 million in fiscal year 25-26. The funds will be used for 6 sub-programs in the measure, and that is move traffic and improve safety, and build better bikeways and pathways, capacity building for both of those, and then also includes bike safety and education and commuter program. And the commuter program. The interest rate will vary based on the actual rate of the county treasury pool. And the average for the last 6 quarters of that was approximately 2.1%. And all repayments will be completed by fiscal year 26-27, and none of the loans will impact any of the measure projects. And I think next slide, please. So that completes my overview. We will link in this presentation that we can use to walk you through the document if you would like to lay eyes on it if you have not already done so. But in the interest of time, I was skipping that portion. So I'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
I can see Steve Burl out with his hand up, so it's not letting you know.
Okay. Steve?
Now, this plan was underway pretty well when the Air Resources Board came out with its scoping plan that significantly changed the goals for driving and for transit. So I'm wondering, as we proceed with the successor to the plan that we're approving today, if we're beginning to think about how that's going to change to try to reach the goals that CARB has given us.
Well, I would say that while the goals were identified in the measure per our comprehensive transportation plan and the regional transportation plan, I understand that things have changed, and you will see that the criteria that were used, the evaluation criteria that were used on the first round of applications for projects that competed for this funding were included as one of the appendices, as an appendix, and we have the ability to revisit those criteria before we go into the next round, so we can certainly take that into consideration. The evaluation criteria are already approved as is by the board, but it doesn't mean that we can't revisit them and take that back to the board for other consideration.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Sean. A great report. I think the last slide, I didn't see when it's going to go to the board.
Oh, I'm sorry. I did mean to say that. So it's going to this committee today. It's going to the Technical Advisory Committee this Thursday, and it will be presented to the board same on July 8th.
Okay, thank you. And appreciate the clarification to Steve's point that we are still able to update the evaluation criteria to remain competitive for state and federal grant monies that would be aligned with those broader state objectives of meeting the CARB scoping plan and goals and the federal climate goals, presuming that they persist into the future. I'm curious about the loan from Measure M to Go Sonoma and these new programs that you're setting up. And to help us improve our outreach to the community and make sure that we are all aware of the ways of reducing vehicle miles traveled. It occurred to me today, riding a bus, that many of us who are in privileged decision-making positions throughout the county actually probably don't ride the bus that much. I don't do it myself very much. But under some of those programs, and I'm not sure which category it might fall into, what about the idea of giving jurisdiction elected leaders and perhaps administrative or council appointed council people like ourselves here at this council to give us clipper cards that we might use ourselves, or to encourage, to pass out to other members of the community which we're associated, and then to take that input from those experiences using the public transit to inform our decision-making around some tables like this one. Is a program like that, it might have a fare box impact only to those people who don't already have a clipper card. But it might actually expand the awareness of these transportation services that are available in the community, and then generate some new ideas. Just an idea that occurred to me writing today, and one that I like. Would a program like this be appropriate under those new program funds?
I think a pilot program like that could certainly be discussed. I don't know, I mean, we would have, there's lots of things to be considered and lots of players to involve, but it's certainly something that I could bring up to Dana as part of the implementation of these new.
Thank you.
Okay. Shauna, great report. A lot of information in there. I actually did read it, all of it.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, we are requesting that the committee provide a recommendation of approval for the board.
Make that motion. I will second that.
Okay. Any further discussion on the implementation plan? All those in favor, we need a roll call vote.
Who seconded? Didn't quite see the section.
Dennis, and then Jeff.
Even like that works.
Yeah, that works fine.
All right, so we'll start with Building Industry Association. Aye. Engineering Contractors Association.
Aye.
League of Women Voters of Sonoma County.
Aye.
North Bay Chapter of the Electric Auto Association.
Abstain.
North Bay Organizing Project.
I
Sierra Club.
Aye.
Sonoma County Alliance.
Aye.
Sonoma County Conservation Coalition.
I'm going to abstain because I haven't read it in the final form yet. Thank you.
Sonoma County Transportation and Land Use Coalition.
Aye.
SOS Roads.
Aye.
Sonoma County Second District.
Aye.
Sonoma County Third District.
Aye.
And Sonoma County Fourth District.
Aye.
All of that, we'll see the motion passing.
Excellent. Thank you, Shauna. Good job, guys.
Thank you.
Measure M projects. Shauna, you're up again.
Thank you.
CAC presentation schedule.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Included in your packet is a schedule that shows the proposed presentation schedule. Like SMART came to you today, we try to schedule these all at once at the beginning of the fiscal year in order to make sure that everyone is aware of when they will be presenting their projects to this committee. This list of projects has been approved by the Technical Advisory Committee, which generally makes up who will be coming to give you the presentations. So we feel that that's the appropriate way to do that, give it to them first and then bring it to you. We bring this to you not only for your information, but should you find that there is something on there that you want more information about, or there is not something on there that you were expecting to see, we would like to know about that now so that we can revise it. Please do keep in mind that this refers to Measure M projects. So all projects that receive Measure M funding are what get included on this list. We do, by request of this board, of this committee, pardon me, include all of the transit operators, and they come in and present to you as a whole. So they are also on this list.
How are we doing on schedule? Are we okay? Shauna, could I ask you to take one of those projects and just kind of talk about how that, if you could short version, how that went through the evaluation process and got selected? Is that something
On-
that you have time to do now?
Sure, so let's just take.
I think it would be helpful for all us to
Sure.
kind of track along with that.
So if I'm looking at the list of projects that's included on page 2 of the staff report, it starts with Central Sonoma Valley Trail. We do try to group all of the projects with that are with a given project sponsor together so that the project sponsors only have to come to you once. And so we had very early in Measure M considered how to provide information to this committee, given that this committee is tasked with the oversight of Measure M. How would we have these projects come to you? Short of a expensive audit process, it made sense for each of the jurisdictions that receive Measure M funding to come before you once a year and provide you with the information about how much funds that they have programmed, how much money have they spent thus far in Measure M and other funds, what are they bringing to the table, and what their schedule is for development and or delivery of the rest of the project. Often Measure M in the early days went to the early project phases. So you would fund the environmental phase or the right-of-way phase of a project, and then they would come back and ask for the remainder of the funds for the construction phase. So each of the project sponsors is tasked with coming to you and providing those details so that you have the opportunity to hear where they are in the process and ask any pertinent questions that might be relevant in your understanding of how these funds are being spent.
Excellent, thank you. Yeah, Tom.
Thank you. It occurs to me that we don't have on here as a category for reporting back to us the loan programs that are a group effectively at this point, right? Does it make sense for us to add that as a specific one, you know, like you have these reports, or to continue to have them sort of interspersed throughout the whole year? Just curious what your thinking is on that.
So thank you for asking. As I mentioned earlier in the report, we run this schedule through the TAC before we bring it to you. When I wrote this, we had only written it for Measure M. We have also written a schedule for the Go Sonoma projects that will also be receiving funds this year and through that loan. And those have been added to this schedule. That schedule is going before the TAC this month, and then it will come to you next month.
Very good. So thank you. It sounds like we're convergently thinking there.
Yes.
Appreciate it.
Good question, thank you. Anything else? And you need, this is an action item. You're looking.
Just to approve and or provide any comments that you feel in case there's something missing or you wanted something that wasn't here.
Any other questions on this phase? Looking for a motion?
So moved.
Okay,
A second.
and a roll call vote or discussion, pardon me. Any further discussion? Call for the roll call vote.
Building Industry Association.
Aye.
Engineering Contractors Association.
Aye.
League of Women Voters of Sonoma County.
Aye.
North Bay Chapter of the Electric Auto Association.
Aye.
North Bay Organizing Project.
Aye.
Sierra Club.
Aye.
Sonoma County Alliance.
Aye.
Sonoma County Conservation Coalition.
Aye.
Sonoma County Transportation and Land Use Coalition.
Jake left.
SOS Roads.
Aye.
Sonoma County Second District.
Aye.
Sonoma County Third District.
Aye.
And Sonoma County Fourth District.
Aye.
Good.
Thank you.
100%, 2 for 2. Good job, Shonda. Thank you. Point of order, we have not lost our quorum. If we had any other business to attend to by losing Jake.
no other business.
And not to embarrass, but when we have somebody sitting in for a Jerry's seat, is that's fine. That doesn't affect the quorum in any way, shape or form. Just asking for my own education here.
I understood that it's the organization that has the
The
seat.
organization has the seat. They can
Organization has the seat.
put whomever they want to it.
Yeah. and
Thank you.
Jerry just happens to be the main.
Thank you.
The DEA, he's not here.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the organization that has a seat and Senate Foxy under that.
Thank you. Well, when we get to such a fine line on the quorum, that's why I was asking, because we had some business that we had to attend to. Thank you, Jake, for showing up. And thank you, all of you. Thank all of you for showing up. What would we have done? Seriously?
Well, we have the two members are actually noticed, so they are able to vote.
So we could have counted them as the quorum. They are counted. So we had 2 or 3 people in excess. Okay, great. Thank you. Brenton, you're up with Measure M financial statements.
Oh, wait, I guess I'm. Okay, hello everyone, I'm Brenton, I'm the Fiscal and Administrative Analyst, and I will be doing a quick item on the Measure M financial update as of May 31st, because there was no CAC meeting last month. This covers the months of April and May. In your packet, you have 4 documents, the combined balance sheets for all of Measure M, the Measure M program balance sheets, a year-to-date cash flow report, which covers just the current fiscal year, and then a cash flow report that covers the cash flow of Measure M since the inception of the program. We'll start with revenues. There were $5,532,000 of revenues in April and May, and year-to-date revenues are now $25,245,000, and expenses were $3,739,954, and year-to-date expenses are now $17,433,059. Our cash balance is $68,987,435. For revenues, they're broken down. 4,976,000 of them were sales and use taxes. 12,915 were federal pass-through dollars related to the Safe Route to School program, and $542,550 was interest on the pooled cash. The sales taxes are basically unchanged from April and May of 2023. However, the year-to-date collected and received are down slightly because of prior quarters lagging a little bit. The difference between years to date collected and received are that we received the taxes 2 months after they're charged. So the year-to-date received includes the last 2 months of the prior fiscal year. All right, and April and May expenses, the 3.7 million, 2,800,812,000 of those were contributions to other governments. That was largely, but not entirely, the local streets and the local bus, the LBT. So contributions to other governments for bus transit and road maintenance. There's $93,900 in staff time, and $810,000 were consultant services. And that concludes the financial update, unless there's any questions.
Quick question. Have we always done the year-to-date received that same way where we're counting 2 extra months?
Yes.
Okay.
So the year-to-date collected just shows the actual, our fiscal year's dollars. That's the discrepancy between those 2 values.
Okay. Anybody else confused by that? I am.
It's cash flow.
Yeah.
We got to get some done.
Okay.
We have that.
I always look to the money guru
Always a
over there.
challenge.
Thank you. Thanks, Brendan. And that's information only. We don't need a roll call vote.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. All right, Chris is up with the Countywide Transportation Plan update. Always some really good information.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good to see you all. It's been a while since I've been able to present to this group, so Excited to be here today to talk about our comprehensive transportation plan. So I know a number of you have been through a number of these updates, so just wanted to provide a brief update on what we're going to be doing as part of this revision and this work, and talk about the timeline and get your feedback on what we'll be doing. So before I jump in, I will say that we'll be coming back with regular updates to this group on the different deliverables we'll be working on in the different facets. So I just wanted to, we're kicking off this summer, so I wanted to give a preview on what we're doing and let you know what's coming soon. So let me go ahead and share here. Make sure I get the right one. And bring that up. It's like we're good, little lag. So I'll be walking through a few things. So starting off with what is, what the comprehensive transportation plan is, why we do it, how often we update it, and why we're updating it now, what we'll be focusing on as part of this effort, and then what our schedule is. So to give a quick spoiler, we're going to be having a pretty quick turnaround on this. We're looking at wrapping this up over the next 18 months. So there are a few schedule constraints that we're working under. So, getting to one of these things, we're going to do a limited update since we have a shorter time frame here. So we're going to be focusing on a few things that we've built on in the past and we want to continue to build on as part of this effort. So there are two major components to the comprehensive transportation plan. One is, talking about the long-term vision and goals for SCTA and the organization. So we work with our board, with this group, the CAC, and the community to talk about where we want to see things going in the future, right? What potential issues are and the direction we want to go. So as part of that, we have a vision statement and goals that we look at, and we look at different ways of getting there in the future. It also serves as a reference document with a lot of statistics, graphics, charts, information on how people travel and different issues people have identified. So even as a reference document sitting on people's shelves, it gets referred to and used as people are putting together general plans and other planning documents around the county. The other piece is a guiding document for transportation funding and long-term planning. So the CTP identifies projects and policies that can feed into the regional plan and statewide transportation plan. So that's one piece of this. And another, as part of our funding, we're required to have an updated policy and planning document to guide our transportation programming and funding, Measure M, Go Sonoma. So this is a piece of that, having that in place to help guide those funding plans. So we've developed 5 CTPs in the past. So the most recent were adopted in 2016 and 2021. The first was adopted back in 2001, before my time here at SCTA. So we've been through this process a number of times. And so what we want to do is really lean on and build on what we've learned in the past. So we don't want to reinvent the wheel every single time. We've learned some things as we've updated these plans. We want to build on that and push the ball forward as we work on this update. So things have changed since 2021, since we last put this plan together. We actually kicked off the last plan update before the pandemic happened. So we completed it during the pandemic. So the way people travel and growth and trends here in Sonoma County have changed quite a bit. So population growth has slowed down a lot in Sonoma County. Our projected population growth is pretty flat looking forward. So that's a big change from where we were in the past. People are working from home a lot more. They're traveling differently. So we want to consider that as we look at our forecast and look forward. We also want to provide a progress report on how well we're doing at achieving our goals. So we have performance measures and quantifiable metrics that we can use to track progress. So one of the first things we want to do as we're working on this is to put together a report card, right? Or a progress report on how we're doing. So talk about VMT, talk about emissions, talk about trip lengths, things like that. So we'll have a presentation that we'll bring to this group and our board, summarizing how well we're doing and where we need to improve. So we have new funding coming online, right? Go Sonoma. There are much more there are different focuses as we're looking at grant funding at the state and federal level. So we'll talk about that in the CTP. One thing we'll be working on is, in addition to looking far out into the future, generally we look 20 to 30 years out in the future for the CTP. We want to put together a near-term implementation plan, looking at what we can do in the next 10 years. So looking at funding sources and projects that are ready to go. So our abbreviated timeline, I alluded to that. So MTC is in the middle of a big regional transportation plan update right now that they'll be wrapping up soon. They're going to be kicking off the next update in 2026. So they want us to have our plan wrapped up by the end of next year to feed into that big regional planning effort. So we have a little bit of a timeline. It's a limited time, so we'll be focusing on certain things as part of this, since we only have 18 months and a small staff and a lot of other things going on right now. And there are so many other recent planning efforts underway. We have our active transportation plan. We heard about SMART's visioning process. Sonoma Clean Power has done a transportation needs assessment as well. So there are a lot of other things going on. We want to really learn from what is happening there. And again, not retread ground that's already been worked through. So here are the main topics that we'll be working on as part of this update. We're going to be refreshing our outreach. We're looking at our goals and producing that progress report, updating our performance analysis and assessment. So looking out to the future, considering population growth and different trends. We'll update our reference sections, update the project list. So that's a major component of the plan, is having a list of potential future transportation projects. So we'll work with our public works folks to get that updated. And then we'll work on that 10-year implementation plan as well. So that'll be a new piece for the plan that we haven't developed in the past. So far as outreach goes, one thing we want to do is really look at those other planning efforts underway and summarize themes that are coming up over and over again, right? What's important to people? You know, are people more concerned about safety, congestion, emissions, things like that? So identify those issues that keep coming up so people feel heard, right? We hear all the time when we're out in the community that people have already commented on this and that plan, right? And they want to feel heard. So we want to summarize those and make that a focus of our outreach for the CTP. So we also want to reach new people. We're going to try a few different things this time around. We want to produce some videos that we can get up, maybe reach some younger people. We want to get out into the community and go where people are. So you may have heard pop-ups being talked about. So basically that's going out and setting up a table at an existing event and being where people are and talking to them about what's important to them. We'll have an effort on social media, online survey, and we'll also have some traditional workshops and community meetings and focus groups as well. So here's a look at our visioning goals. I'm not going to read through this, but this is available on our website in the plan and here in the packet as well if you want to look through that. But we have some pretty high level broad goals, focusing on improving our transportation system and improving people's lives here in Sonoma County. We also have a number of different quantifiable metrics that we can, use for that report card. You can see if we're moving in the right direction or need to kind of redouble our efforts in certain areas. So we'll be looking at these types of things like miles of bicycle facilities, how many transit hours are out there, VMT, things like that.
Can you make that larger?
It's in the packet.
Yeah. It is in the packet, but if you want a really big PDF that you can zoom into, let me know and I can get that out. I know it's pretty small. I just wanted to give you a taste. But I'm happy to do a really big or multi-page version. That'd be helpful.
I can at least believe in it.
Okay. So for the report card, it'll go through a lot of this information and have maybe one or two of these on a slide. So it'll dive into a lot more detail. This is just the kind of high level stuff that we'll be digging into more. Looking at the schedule, I mentioned shooting to wrap up by the end of next year. So there are 4 different tracks that we'll be following here. Outreach is going to be going on the whole time, right? Looking at those themes first, getting out into the community and talking to people this fall, winter, into next year, and then collecting feedback on the draft and final plan at the end of next year. We'll also look at our vision and goals, looking at that progress report, updating our metrics and reporting on that. We'll update the technical data and analysis. So a lot of that's the reference data that's in the plan, but also updating our tools that we use to analyze the future, like the travel model and other tools like that. We'll go through a performance assessment, look at the future, look at where we may be in the future and how different decisions may move us in different directions. So we'll do that starting this winter into next year. And then we'll work on draft and final CTP documents. A big part of that is updating that project list. So talking with our local jurisdictions, finding out what projects are still important to them, make sure they're updated, and collect information on new projects, make sure they're in the plan. We'll evaluate different policies. We've done that in the past and see how they can help move us into different directions in the future. And then put together a draft and final CTP, shooting for the end of 2025. So I know that's really short. I know we're past 5 o'clock, but there's a lot of work to go forward. We just wanted to let you know kind of what's coming up. So there'll be a lot of different opportunities to engage on these different topics in detail over the next year.
Quick question. I think it's a quick question. One of the biggest expenditures that we've had, if not the biggest, is widening Highway 101 over the last 20 some odd years. It would be good for us to know if that has resulted in a lowering of GHG emissions on a overall basis, and or an increase or lowering of VMTs, or did that stay the same? I don't know the answer to that. I have my own opinions. I think removing the traffic queue that used to be there for 3 hours a day and 3-hour trip back from Golden Gate Bridge to Sonoma County probably did something like that to the GHG emissions. But on the other hand, if you were able to pull that information out, can you mitigate those results based on the improved efficiencies of the engines and so forth? Is that something that we can get, Chris, from your study?
We can do some different tests, and we've tested a lot of different things in the past. So generally, expanding the capacity of the roadways is going to increase VMT and increase greenhouse gas emissions. But we've looked at different approaches and scenarios by using up all the capacity in the HOV lane, assuming that all the cars in the HOV lane are full, right? 4 people in a vehicle, that can help. That's very conceptual, right? But there are a few different things that we can test. And as we get closer and scope that out, we can come back to this group as we're developing those tests and scenarios to get feedback on what would be useful to look at. And we can target one specific.
Yeah, would that be a joint mission with the RCPA? We had a nice hour and a half vision meeting today, and we were talking about kind of joint missions and so forth. It would seem like that'd be very useful to know. Yeah, Tom first, because I saw his hand go up quick.
I have a similar question to John's with respect to traffic congestion relief from Highway 101, because I'm hearing, I don't take that route. I never did suffer in that congestion, but I'm hearing on, the traffic reports on the radio that Santa Rosa is getting congested at the peak hours again already. So curious how that fits in. And then the other thing, Chris, is I think this data is really useful, and I'm excited to see this update coming. To Steve's earlier question about mapping our local efforts to CARB's goals, I noticed on the goal page, we have a general zero emissions goal. Is it possible at this next stage to put in place some more interim quantitative goals for VMT reduction in particular, because that's explicit in Appendix D of the CARB scoping plan for local action? And I think there's a couple of metrics we are tracking that are adjacent or can help with this. The two I noticed were VMT per capita and population per capita itself, and the number of capita. And it looks like the way we're currently achieving our VMT reductions are by reducing the number of people in Sonoma County and then also reducing the number of miles those people drive. I'm concerned, and I think this ought to be a concern to all the business interests around the county, that if we're not careful, we could easily see, as Joanne pointed out, that we're very sensitive to these shocks of climate impacts like floods and fires, as well as to the pandemic. And I anticipate more of those in the future. So, you know, we want to be resilient to those things, both for environmental, but also for business resilience. So I think this plan could help with that. And wondering if a simple analysis of how much of our VMT reduction to date has been a result of population drop versus efficiency in transportation. Because I think that you might share that by percentage base. It'd be like a pie chart, and there'd be two components. And what's the fraction? I'd like to see that. Does that make sense?
Oh, it definitely does. Yeah. And I think we can at least get close to that. And if you look at the trend lines, right, when the economy's not doing well, VMT goes right down, right? Where population flattens out, VMT flattens out. So there are, you know, a lot of correlations there. Fuel economy too is such a big part of the emissions as well. Yeah. So we can pull that information and report out too. So, you know, I think we can probably get pretty close to something like.
Because in theory, gentrification, you know, a bunch of old winos living in one place and not moving around much could reduce VMT greatly. That's one of the things we're thinking about in Sonoma Valley, is we're getting quite old relative to the norm of the state. So is that the strategy we want to pursue? I think we should be admitting of that if that's what we're doing.
Tom, I'd respectfully add one more thing to that too, and that is that how many of us get the effective Amazon deliveries, DoorDash, all that other stuff? We're talking about reducing these average 4.5 mile trips that the rural person travels, and I think it's 2.5 within the city limits. Some of that, if not a significant amount of that, is because somebody is replacing those trips by delivering to our door. Well, are we compensating for that? So anyway, just a thought. Over to Tom first, and then over to Denny.
Just to follow up with Chair Bly's question on 101, do you have the data that would also look into, did widening of 101 from 2 to 3 lanes bring in traffic that had previously been diverted on the other major arterials like Santa Rosa Avenue or McDowell or something like that, and now it's widened, that comes back onto the freeway?
There's a couple ahead of you.
Or did it just induce it's easier passage, so it induces demand, you know, with this flat population, like you said. And if you've got that, that would be interesting to see in addition to the air quality issue.
Yeah, let me see what we can do. So, you know, with some of our tools, we can look at some of that. We'll just have to check on the actual real world data, what's available. That might be a limiting factor. So
I think you've struck a collective vein here.
Yeah.
Denny.
Originally, measure around, one of the goals was to optimize roadway operations to allow effective movement of people, goods, and services. We've dropped goods and services. Is there a reason for that?
We've included it in one of those larger goal areas. So, and we actually worked on that. Let me get to those goals really quick. Are we still? It's okay. I can read it really quick.
I couldn't find it whenever I read it through it. So anyway, yeah, I did go through it.
It's buried in there under connected and reliable. That's one of the goals. And
that's what I'm looking.
Yeah,
it's not there.
So in the plan, we do, I believe, mention freight and goods movement in there. And I know as part of the update from the 2016 plan to the 2020 plan, that goal that you're referring to morphed into this one, and that was at the direction of our board. So they wanted to move into kind of this higher, broader level like this. but it's certainly super important, right? And
Yeah,
would
I mean,
think that-
that's the whole thing about Measure M and how we got it passed, was the movement of improvement for goods and services. So besides the soccer mom across town, so anyway, yeah.
So we'll definitely report on that as part of the progress report. So there are a few of these metrics that get at that. One is person hours of delay, which is a congestion measure. Peak period travel time, which gets at freight and goods efficiency. That's kind of the metric we've used in the past to look at delivery efficiency. So we'll definitely report on that again, and I think we can make the tie to congestion management there as well.
Thanks, Rich.
I think we got one more question on the.
Yeah, Dominic, yeah, thank you. I guess, Marty, great presentation. So I guess a couple of questions. One was, I saw a lot of questions on public outreach and those sorts of things. Was there any intent to do any benchmarking? It seems like there ought to be a lot of similar counties that have similar demographics. Is there any ability to do benchmarking on BMT or GHG or some of the age and gender, or not gender, but racial demographic changes as well, impacting in this area?
We've done a little bit in the past of that in previous CDPs, and I think we can do that again. So we've looked at emissions factors and rates and BMT per capita rates in different large cities and small cities.
Yeah.
So that sort of information's out there. So I think we can dig some of that up and at least do a little bit of it. You know, it might not be a 40-page report, but at least like a breakout section of a page or a couple pages. You know, I think we could dig into that a little bit. And I think it would particularly be interesting to look at our neighbors.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just thinking from a goal setting perspective, if our goal is way over here, whatever, I mean, these are, pretty vanilla right now, but.
Thanks for bringing that up. That's
And then related, I'd be remiss if I didn't bring it up on Jerry's behalf, was just any regional alignment on transportation, right? Just I think Jerry talks about it every month, is, what are we doing from making sure that all of the transportation authorities are aligned and the impacts of that in the plan, right?
Great, yeah. Thanks for that.
Okay, Steve, you had your hand up, but now I don't see it up. Do you still have a question, Mr. Bertelbaugh?
Well, I decided that we've given him enough and I'll talk to him later.
Let's get him. Come on, let's give him a tough one.
Well, what I'm really interested in is we've seen a lot of 4-story buildings going up in Santa Rosa. And I'm interested in how much of that is related to the fact that Smart has a rail station there now that didn't exist 20 years ago.
And very few parking spots to go with those 4-story buildings, like none.
Right. Everybody will have to be on foot.
Excellent. Yeah, and Tom had one further comment.
One more question for Go Sonoma project evaluation criteria that's in Appendix 4 in the SCTA. How is your scheme, especially your technical data, could you comment how that is used for evaluation? I presume by SCTA and is shared with other jurisdictions, or?
Yeah, so I can talk about the process that was used before, and maybe Jonathan and David, if they'd like to comment on it as well, if I miss anything. But the evaluation criteria was based on, the goals and vision that was developed through the CTP. So the scoring criteria and rubric, they're tied directly to those goals and other, more detailed needs that were identified by the TAC.
So like the questions in there for air quality and the traffic flow, obviously, I presume this is the first tool to go to.
The CTP, yeah. So this will be kind of the foundation that's used to develop the scoring criteria.
Okay.
Chris, do you have a do you have counterpart to you in other municipalities and other agencies and so forth? Or are you just that brilliant? You sit in your little cubicle over there and come up with all this stuff on your own? So how much, I guess my question is, how much communication goes back and forth between your counterpart and yourself?
So They're monthly meetings with my colleagues across the Bay Area. So we get together and we, receive presentations from MPC. We talk about, updating CTPs and things like that. So there's a monthly meeting.
Okay, pretty regular, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so there's communication. Yeah, and some support, right? Sometimes I'll have an answer, I'll have a question, they'll have an answer. Sometimes they'll have a question, I'll have an answer, so.
Well, thank you. Great report. Looking forward to all this stuff coming out in the future here. I think we're all quite interested in it. Rick?
I was going to suggest to deal with one of the concerns Tom brought up before about population fluctuations. You could finesse that a little bit with per capita calculations like GHG and VMT and so on.
Yeah, that's a good way to normalize.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Adam, you're up with travel behavior study.
All right, good evening. Adam Garcia, data analyst for transportation climate. I'm going to make this short. Unfortunately, we don't have time for a presentation, but recently we released. Sorry, got a train to catch also. Family waiting. So there's a lot of great information in there, both high level county results, talking about a lot of the things that we have been here. VMT per capita, trips in terms of origins and destinations. It's very simplified, but it's a way to look in depth at each of the individual jurisdictions, but we also break apart the county into 11 different travel behavior zones. So this is taking cell phone data, big data for the years 2017, 2019, and 2022, and looking at how did travel patterns based off origins and destinations, where did people start their trips, where did they end it, where did those trips go to, how far were they, both looking within the county, but then outside the county too, where are people going to or coming into the county. So there's the PowerPoint presentation, staff report, as well as the draft report that are in the agenda. And I encourage you to give it a read over, and please get in touch with me if you have any questions, comments, concerns. Some of the calculations you were talking about, you could probably piece together maybe in there with some of the data points, but I'd be happy to help out as well. So with that, maybe I'll just conclude unless you have any immediate questions.
A quick question, I guess. I just think of Lake County and Mendo County as being where lower income service providers live and then travel into Sonoma County to work.
Mm-hmm.
And then on a comment that somebody made about the four-store, is that changing? Is that still true? Or are we accommodating our lower income service providers?
Yeah,
within the county now?
We can't say specifically maybe to the job quality of the people coming in from Mendocino and Lake counties. There is data though that looks at AM and PM traffic flows. That's not in the presentation, but in the report. And so you can look from between 2017 and 2022, there was the biggest increase actually came from Mendocino County percentage wise, not in total numbers. So there were a lot of, increase during that time of more commuters coming into Sonoma County from Mendocino.
But your information on the cell phone you're only able to grab that information back to 17. If we didn't have the ability to do it prior to 17.
This is actually, I should clarify, thank you. This is an addendum. So there was the original travel behavior study that was just for a snapshot for 2017 primarily, and a little bit of 2018. And so this is taking a more expanded view between 2017, 2019, and 2022.
And do you communicate with Ethan and EDB, the Sonoma County EDB and so forth? Because it seemed like when I first started noticing these studies, their information was completely different than the information that I was getting from this committee and so forth. Do you share this information? do they do their own studies or do they solely depend on your studies? How does that
Yeah,
work?
we haven't coordinated in terms of data with them. We've been working a little bit with the Tourism Bureau, just on terms of thinking about what attractions there are and what the data is showing.
Okay.
But we can, yeah, very much make this data available, the overwhelming data tables as well, if that's of interest.
Yeah.
To be able to look at what some of that, yeah, those data points
I
are.
think they'd be highly interested in it, I would think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Great,
Mr.
thank
Chair, I could say,
Yeah, Chris.
we did share the original travel behavior study with PDB, so they're familiar with that. We've talked a lot about those data inconsistencies that you mentioned.
Yeah,
So it's a lot of it's down to different data sources, so. Yeah, we're still working on the draft for this document, but once it's complete, we can definitely make sure we have a copy.
great, thank you.
Just briefly, Mark and I would like you guys to just take a close look at what appear to be some data anomalies on page 26.
Okay.
Between the Mendocino number as 20, you have 7%, the text doesn't seem to match the.
Okay, great. I will look into that. Thank you.
Thank you. Holy cow. Did we do it? All right, on to agendas. Wow.
Good job, Mr. Chair. And Mr.
Everybody.
Assistant over there.
All right, so the next SCTA RCPA Board of Directors meeting is on July 8th after the holiday. And so there will be, so here's what they'll be presenting. There's meeting notes of last June meeting. A legislative update, there's the 2024 Community-Based Transportation Plan Program. An update to the transit ad hoc membership. And then for the regular calendar includes the transit-oriented communities policy update, final 2023 strategic implementation plan that you received today. The RCPA County greenhouse gas inventory, the 2022 update, travel behavior study, and then the comprehensive transportation plan updates, and then the rest as per usual, reports and announcements.
We've been asking.
Fantastic job. Thank you, guys. Thank you for keeping our questions short. This is a very active committee. And I know it must have been absolutely torture for you guys to not raise your hands. No, we did a great job. There's a lot of stuff to cover. We got it covered. Thank you, staff. Thank you, guys. Sure. Danny, didn't you think we were gonna go till 6:15?
I was worried. You kept asking any more questions, we're gonna catch you up.
I know. Sorry, buddy.
I like it.